I just had this drop in my spirit that if we're looking at transferring the baton to the next generation, one character in the Bible that epitomizes this is Abraham. And so I decided that I was going to speak from Abraham's perspective. Little did I know that God had a lot at the back of his mind for all of us, including especially myself. Because yes, I remember that the day Victor made the presentation, I asked a question because sometimes I do get a bit irritable with the younger generation, as it were. And so it's like, look, let's stop acting like we are the ones that must provide and pamper. What about them and their attitude? And I remembered Sister Bolaji responded that day and began to talk about how we must be open-minded and all. And so that got me really thinking that how open-minded have I been? So today, I think that some of the things that I'm going to share, I'm not claiming that they're 100% foolproof. So I'm expecting a lot of reaction. I even think some of the reaction will be that I would probably irritate your mind a little. And if I did, honestly, that would have been, should I say, my objective fulfilled. So I'm looking forward to a lot of irritation happening. I'm looking for, or should I say, a lot of stirring happening as I take this conversation. I'm going to try and speak through my slides because some of the things, especially the scriptural perspective, I know we already know it. Many of us are very grounded. However, I will try and rush through everything because I do have a number of slides. I will try and finish it in 30 minutes or less. And once I'm done, I believe that we can have some conversation. But if there's anything that's very pressing on your mind, please feel free and let us have a conversation. There we go. Sorry, I was trying to change my slides and it is not moving. So please forgive me. I'm going to try and exit the slide and come back again with the presentation. Please forgive me. Sorry, just a minute, please. Okay, let me try again and see whether, I would be able to present. But if not, I will, okay, yes. So the first comment I'm going to make is because I'm trying to talk to leadership, which we've all been talking about. And this is from John Maxwell. He says, he that thinketh he leadeth and hath no one following is only taking a walk. And my rejoinder to this is, God forbid that I should stroll through life and not make the impact that God wants me to make. So really, what is leadership? I'm going to quote Dwight Eisenhower. He was one of the presidents of America, I believe. He says, leadership is the art, and I will quote him a couple of times in this presentation. He said, leadership is the art of getting someone to do something because he wants to do it. And my immediate conversation around this is leadership getting behind somebody's psychology? And the question is actually no. So leadership is not manipulation. So what is leadership? Again, the same Dwight says that you don't lead by hitting people over the head. That's assault, not leadership. Now, you don't physically hit people over the head, but you could be mentally hitting people over the head. And like I said, when I decided to hold this presentation, I didn't know that God had a lot up his mind that he wanted to communicate, both to myself and I believe to a number of people on this platform, because God has work for us to do. And honestly, when I saw this particular definition that Eisenhower gave, I realized that this sometimes is what the feeling that our next generation seem to have. So I decided to have a conversation this morning with them. And I'm going to be quoting some of the things they said. By the time I was done in that discourse, I was sweating profusely. So I'm going to quickly read this out. One of them said, we young people don't want to be like them. And like them means a lot of us on this platform. He says, we definitely don't want to be like the older people. I was in shock. I'm quoting verbatim. He says, on behalf of the young people, I am happy that we have had a break in mentality. And the person that said this said, look, I grew up wanting to be like my parents, and many of us did. But at some point, we realized that we don't want to be like you. And I'm happy that we have made that break away from that mentality. And then he said something. He said, have you heard us say things like last? I don't know whether you've heard them say it, but this is their mentality that, look, you know what? You guys are always telling us that we're going to fail. We're going to miss it. Last, money will finish. Last, I go use my last 1K buy food. These are their slangs. They were just telling me. I no go die. In other words, it's okay. I won't die. I'm okay. And then one said, last, we go there all right. Then I moved to the next discourse, and someone said, the young people are always afraid. And as I was listening to this, I was hearing Mrs. Ajose's voice in my head. I was hearing Sister Bolaji Osime's voice in my head. And I'm like, look, this was what these people were trying to say. He says, they are always afraid of the opinion of people. Now, talking about the young people. So now we're getting to the not very nice part of it. He says, we allow discouragement to weigh us down. We see ourselves as failures. Our parents don't help. They say we've done that before, it doesn't work. This was someone referring to the fact that even when they want to venture, their parents are telling them it doesn't work. And one of them actually said, "Che, you remember NSAS? They told us it would not work." That thing happened by chance, so it wasn't like they planned for it to go that big. But then it got out of control. And so they're back to that feeling of discouragement. He said, we are the youths. We need to take over, but we end up not going. In other words, they strive, but they fall down. Then this is the last slide, and I would go into what I want to present. It says, what we need is really a good support system. People that really believe in us. This got me thinking that, so they actually do not think we believe in them. It says, the beauty of this is that in the heart of every young person, they have many things to say. Our parents don't even know what we think. All the things, sorry, just a minute. I'm so sorry. I keep trying to admit people. All the things, sorry, just a minute, please. All the things, so this one says, all the things they, talking about parents or leaders, are saying, they don't do them and they expect us to act. In other words, we're hypocrites. And then one says 70% of Nigerian youths don't believe in Nigeria. This is me forming my opinion after that conversation. So there's the old, sorry, which represents many people on this platform. There is the new, which represents the younger folks. I don't know, the picture in the middle is like the masses. I don't know how many of us remember the picture from NSAS or from the Gani Fawa, not, is it Gani? The Tunde Bakare freedom fights that happened in Ojota back then. But as Nigerians, I then also went to look at our demography, which I tend to quote a lot of times. And I was, this is 2016, which means that the vast majority, some have died and some younger ones have been born. So I suspect that this demography is even worse or better, depending on which side of the divide you're on. 91% of the people in Nigeria are under 50. So all of a sudden, I realized that I am in the minority in Nigeria. Before now, if they're saying those old people, I assume they're talking about other people, not myself. But looking at this today, I was in shock as to how much of a dilemma we have. So the question I have for us on this forum is this an opportunity or are we on a ticking time bomb? Again, if you're like me, your mind is probably considering both. And I had to make some mindset reset today and make some commitments. So having said all of that, let me go back to what my conversation was going to be, and I'm going to rush through this. And it is basically to say that there was a man called Abraham. And I chose this picture deliberately because this is Isaac carrying the sticks that they were going to use in building the, what's it called? The altar that he was going to be sacrificed on. So sometimes we do feel that our children feel like that they're sacrifices that we're trying to offer to God. However, this is Isaac. I'm taking this picture because he was facing the other direction, but I will show us a subsequent picture. But the question is, who is Abraham and how did he do it? Maybe I should have asked another question to say, what exactly did he do and how did he do it? Many of us are used to these terminologies or this nomenclature about Abraham. He's the father of faith, he's the father of nations. And if we look at Genesis 18, 17 to 19, it says, and the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? See that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I know him. This is Jehovah attesting to Abraham now. And I start asking myself a question. Can God say, I know Jumoke? Now, what God attested or boasted about Abraham on is a very grievous one, because I asked myself, how many families, how many parents, how many business leaders, how many bosses, how many managers can God say, I know you, you will command your subordinates, you will command your children, you will command your household after you, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he had spoken. It's food for thought. I won't bother to try and preach it. But what did the Lord say he was going to do? He said, in Abraham shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Abraham trained Isaac. Isaac trained Jacob. Jacob trained his 12 sons, who became the 12 tribes of Jesus. And through them, the Christ came. And today we have the church, which is the spiritual seed of Abraham. So effectively, baton has passed down through decades and centuries to arrive at you and I today. So Abraham succeeded, basically. So what is it about Abraham? I'm not going to bother to quote. I'm going to share the slides anyway. But if we read the scriptures, there are many characters or character traits that we can see in Abraham's life that begins to speak to us about who he is and how he became such a phenomenal generational leader. Number one, his faith. Two, he was a very hospitable person. He was someone that always engaged in communion with the Lord or with men of God, like we saw in Melchizedek's case. Abraham was extremely discerning. He knew what to do and what not to do. He was someone that, at the end of the day, he could take decisions based on what he believed was the counsel of Jehovah. He was obedient to the Lord. If God said, get up, he would get up and go. If God says, walk before me and be upright, he would do it. He was also extremely wealthy. So again, he was a man of great means. And the Bible was very clear. He had animals, he had gold, he had everything. And I'm stressing that deliberately because that's one of the snags for the younger folks. They believe that, look, you sat down in one place. Anyway, he's an intercessor. We saw him intercede for his nephew Lot. He had an unbiased trust in God. He was someone that tithed. So he had a covenant of tithing, as we saw, even with what he did with Melchizedek. He was a warrior. Abraham, as an individual, took on 5 kings. I mean, it was called the Battle of the Kings. He was a very prayerful person, and he had no strife. When there was an issue that could have generated strife, Abraham knew what to do. I just picked up a few things that struck me. But more importantly is the quote beneath, which I took from Genesis 14:14. It says, and when Abraham heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants born in his house 318. Every time I read this thing, I stop and I balk at this idea, because we're not talking 2023, where the world's population is over 7 billion. We're talking how many decades ago? How many years before Christ? And this man had 318 servants trained and born in his house. So if we're talking leadership, this guy actually exemplifies what we're talking about. But then he wasn't without his flaws, and I picked a few. Abraham lied. Abraham also entertained fear when there was a famine. So Abraham jackpad. Abraham compromised. He was always telling his wife to say, please tell them you're my sister. He didn't do it once, he did it twice. He did it with Pharaoh, he did it with Abimelech. So he was not perfect, he was human. And that reminded me of this scripture about Elijah, when James 5:17 said he was a man subject to like passions, just like we are. But yet, Elijah prayed and God moved. And he just didn't move. He actually made sure that there was no rain for 3.5 years. So I don't know what we think is our leadership challenge. I believe God has made the provisions for us to have access to what we need to be able to do this. So how was Abraham able to leave such a legacy? Again, I started my picture of Abraham with Isaac facing the other way. I took this other picture with Isaac following him. They were going to go. There was no, somebody said it was that Isaac was not 3 years old. So how come he didn't wrestle? How come he didn't jump off the altar? Anyway, whatever Abraham did, it was part of God's plan all along. So let us also remember that this leadership call is actually something that is at the heart of the Father. And in Genesis 17, it says, as for me, God talking, behold, my covenant is with Adejumoke. It is with Abraham. It is with Brother Funshotoki. It is with Elder Sheirite. It is with every one of us on this platform. And we shall become a father of many nations, or we shall become transformational leaders. Neither shall thy name anymore be called. So God needs to change certain things. And in verse 6, it says, and I will make thee exceedingly fruitful. Oh, sorry, verse 5, it says, for a father of many nations have I made thee. In other words, God himself made Abraham the leader. And he said to him that he will establish his covenant, not just with Abraham, but with his seed after him. So again, when he says his seed after him, yes, he's talking about his children. But we just saw that 318 people were born. He's not talking about servants that he acquired along the way. These were the ones that were given birth to, that he made sure were trained. And when there was need for battle, he went into battle. I just thought to call this out, but in the interest of time. So let me go back to Eisenhower. He says, a people that values its privileges above its principle soon lose both. Whether it's your privileges or your principles, the day you begin to look at material acquisition and fame and everything, and forgive me, like I said, I may irritate you with a few of my comments, you know, it says that you would soon lose both the privileges and the principles. And sometimes when I look at Nigeria today, I cannot help but say that, is it that we have put the cart before the horse? Why are we losing the younger folks? And these people are at least 80% of this population. He says, so my comment on this is we can't build on something if we take out the foundation. So if our foundation is actually the principles that God has given unto us, we're not going to be able to raise this next generation by taking out the same principles because we don't think it is fashionable. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 3:11 says, for other foundation can no man lay than that which is already laid, which is Jesus Christ. So whatever we do, Jesus Christ is still the bedrock of our leadership. Billy Graham, another quote, says, the greatest legacy one can pass to one's children. Now, I'm putting children here, but I believe that we now know that Isaac was just one, Ishmael was two. Yes, there were a few other children by Keturah, but Abraham actually had many children, and he also had them in generations, and he has you and I. And the greatest legacy that he has left us is the legacy of faith and the legacy of character, like Billy Graham said. I also tried to quote this scripture from Isaiah 59:14. Sorry, it's being covered by my screen, but it talks about truth being fallen in the streets, and the fact that we no longer have equity. At the end of the day, if we're looking at today's world and we're looking at what has happened to Jerusalem, it's not different. So how do we do this? If God has called us as transformed minds to become leaders and to leave a legacy, what do we think we need to do? And that's the discourse. I don't have all the answers. I just further entrench the problem so that we know that we do have a role to a work to do. And like I said on this slide, we must roll up our sleeves. We must get rid of animosity. Animosity because there seems to also be a divide between us and the generation we pretend to live. So if we're going to get across to them, we're going to have to eat the humble pie and take the animosity out. I have heard what they're trying to say. There are a few things I want to do. I'm going to try and brood on it and then hopefully share with us in the team and see how I can leverage some people. But Eisenhower again says this. He says, this world of ours must avoid becoming a community of dreadful fear and hate, and be instead a proud confederation of mutual trust and respect. So I feel that the first place to make this difference is to choose to make the difference. And the question is, can you say this? I can and I will. Zechariah 4:6 says, this is the word of the Lord unto Adejumoke. It is not by might, it is not by power, it's by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. So my injunction to us on this forum is just say yes to God. Yes, that you will be able to pass on that legacy and start building trust again. Trust has fallen, or truth has fallen in the street, like Isaiah 59 says, but we can reinstate it. But to reinstate it, communication is key. But to communicate, we need to start listening. I only listened for 30 minutes today or 1 hour. And what I heard broke my heart. So let's start listening first and foremost to God, like I did last week. Let's listen to the younger folks. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Am I still audible, Mr. Toki?
I'm clapping here. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you now, sir. So thank you.
I've been clapping here actually. Well done, Sister Jumoke. And thanks to everybody who has listened in, and to those who joined us after the introduction. This is Sister Jumoke Awolumate, a foundation member of this forum. We thank you for sharing your insight. And as I mentioned, well, it is not much about your own personal experience, even though you also have a leadership experience we can learn from. Maybe that's for another day. But today it's about Abraham, how he was able to mentor a whole nation of new leaders and generations of leaders after him. I mean, that reminds me of I don't know to whom it is attributed now, but they're saying that the real job of a leader is not to create more followers, but to create more leaders. And we have seen that in the life of Abraham. He created people who became leaders, generations and generations and generations after him. And through him, we have all been blessed. I don't know. There seems, okay, so if there is any hand up, any contributions, any observations, any comments, any points of emphasis relating to what she has presented, or disagreement with some of the perspectives? The floor is open now.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Sister Jumoke. That was just very powerful. And I just hear your hearts very much on what you have said about the next generation. And, when you are speaking, I'm supposed to speak at Habakkuk. And I think Mr. Wright gave my name to speak at Habakkuk next week or sometimes. And the topic they gave me worried me. And it's still worrying me because, and I'm thinking, why must I speak on the topic? Because the topic is talking about the next generation and it's saying that the get rich quick culture. And that topic has, you know, and I was going to call the pastor and say, look, I'm not so sure this is what I think of this generation, you know. And what I think of this generation is that they have been able to do, yes, there's the aspect of them that can be negative, like Yahoo boys and all of that. But when you look at what we are doing in with music, when you look at people like Wizkid and some of these young people, these people are making billions through the fact that they are putting Nigeria out there, you know. In fact, the music, when you go to malls now, you hear their music and all of that. So they're putting Nigeria out there, or Africa out there with Afro beats and all the music that they're doing, and we're being recognized, and they're making billions, you know, and they're using the internet as well. They're doing so well in tech. So I was now thinking to myself, how do I talk to Gen Z from a negative perspective when I know that that is not who they are? Yes, a few of them have misrepresented them, like this, what was the name? This young guy that was arrested in Dubai. A few of them have gone the wrong way, but majority actually are keen on making the best of what they have. And the point about it is Nigeria has not given them opportunities at all. But despite that, yes, thank you, Hush Puppy. You know, despite that, they are trying their best, you know. So I just wanted to resonate with what you just said, that as the older generation, the baby boomers, because most of us are like baby boomers, you know, the way we look at things is so different from the way they're looking at things. And we need to now try and educate ourselves of the mindset of the Gen Z. If we take our time to educate ourselves of the mindset of Gen Z, then we'll be able to give them a platform, like I said last time, that we need to, because the problem is there's still that friction. And once the friction is there, we cannot do what Abraham did. Because Abraham was able to build a legacy, a generational legacy, by passing down to his sons, and they passed down to their sons, and they passed down to their sons. And obviously, there's no way Abraham could have passed something down to them, and they accepted if he was looking down on them. So what he was doing is he was sort of bringing them up and saying, look, this is what I have for you, and I would like you to do with the same with your children. So I just wanted to say that I think we have had this presentations back to back now, and that means God is saying something very, very seriously to us as the older generation. And like you rightly said, you said you're going to look at what you can do in your own space to see how you are going to embrace them, and to, because the more of us that we're able to embrace them and let them have a safe place to go, the more successful they're going to be as leaders, the more successful, because we're all getting older. And these are the generation, these are the people that are leading Nigeria. They're going to be the ones leading. I was very proud of Bosun Tijani, you know, when Bosun was elected as a minister. I was very proud because Bosun has been doing a lot of good stuff in the tech space for a long time, for young people, because they have the tech, they had that years ago that they started in Yaba. And that has become something very, very formidable now. So quietly, our young people are doing a lot of good things in Nigeria. They're making a lot of money. They are creating jobs. They're using technology. They are digital natives. And even if we find it difficult to understand that space, I think we need to study. We need to take time to understand the generations. Most of us, some of us on this platform, have a lot of them in that space. And what they tell me, like what you said, is that our parents are not listening to us. You know, our parents are speaking at us. So because of the fact that they felt that we don't listen to them, they now do the opposite of what they want us, you know, what we're expecting. They become rebellious in most cases and say, after all, they've already condemned us, that we are no good. You know, I remember the SARS, when SARS happened, I had to bring about 20 of them or so on Zoom, that we had to cancel them because they were very devastated psychologically. So we had to gather them on Zoom, and we spoke to them because they felt that we had disappointed them. They felt that the whole world, you know, Nigeria had disappointed and then killed them on top of that. So that means there's a need for groups to not ignore this generation, but like what we're doing, to practically come together with initiatives to let them know that there are certain people who are rooting for them, who we can speak to them, and they can see us as elders, just like Abraham, and they can come to us and share their hearts and know that we will listen to them, and then from there they can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Well, looking at our own immediate environment and then looking at the example of Abraham, the greatest impact Abraham would have exerted must have been on his direct son, Isaac. Yes, he had over 300 others with him and all of that, but the most significant impact must have been on that Isaac. That means just one person who now affected other generations. So I'm looking at our constitution. I'm looking at all the faces on the screen. There are instances where there are no faces, but then I know the people behind the names. Well, you also mentioned, madam, that we are generally baby boomers, or even though not all of us are baby boomers. But what I'm looking at, why don't we look at starting this thing with this forum, getting more young people into this forum? Young people are also in the marketplace, not necessarily people who are in school, but young people are in the marketplace, who are in the workplace, who are also able to, I mean, they have the same orientation because we're all in the marketplace, not struggling in school. So maybe we should have that focus and then get more of them into this class. Even if we are going, as I said about Abraham, the impact was mainly on Isaac. If we are able to impact on just one or two or three persons who are also able to take it down the line into future generations, we'll have done a great job. Thank you very much. Any other contributions? Observations, comments? Well, so
just to add one brief thing, right?
iPhone 66. Can you please mention a name?
It's Somila Juomi. Sorry, I changed my phone. So since then,
okay.
Right, iPhone. My name is not iPhone 66. Although it's a cool, very Gen Z name to have, but unfortunately, it's not my name. So I think the last point you made, Mr. Funshaw, is apt, right? What Sister Jumoke presented is the essence of transform mind. And I think if we can take that last point to heart and see how we can work on it, right? To see how we can use this forum to reach younger people. Because trust me, I do see a lot of them. Trust me, a lot of them are lost. They are very, very lost. There's a lot of moral corruption that is being passed through social media as well, right? And the truth is, we have a responsibility to set them on the right path. I know that it's not all negative, but we also shouldn't close our eyes to the fact that there's more negativity being easily accessible out there because of social media, especially, right? YouTube than ever before. So more than ever, we must take on that responsibility and that mantle to see how we, within our own sphere of influence, right, could continue to pass on a positive message. Because even if we reach 1 or 2 or 3 people, with God's help, it can spread to millions. So my challenge to us all is that the committees, we've been sort of looking at how we can get extra help, right? Beyond just this forum that we have today, because we are somewhat stretched. So maybe if this topic has touched 1 or 2 people, you can reach out to Mr. Wright to say, look, how can I help at the committee level? So that's my contribution.
Okay, thank you, Brother Asami. Sister Bolajo spoke earlier. I think we are making progress along that line. So there seems to be an agreement that we can look at ways of bringing into the forum more young people, and so that it is not just those of us who are already moving towards towards that departure lounge. By the grace of God, each of us will still spend at least 30 years, or by the grace of God. But then we should be realistic. Our generation needs to do more but to impact on the younger generation. And so here's our own opportunity, so that we don't just talk. Let's even see it in practice. And then If there are other comments, please
I
let's
think
come up with those.
Brother Doug actually, Douglas, he actually raised his hand.
Oh, sorry, I can't see that. But please go ahead, sir.
Yes, hi, good evening. First of all, Madam, great presentation. I was just going to add that if we are going to bring more like the younger generation on this platform, we should also try to understand how they consume information. See, the information, the way the older generation taught is slightly different from the way teaching goes on today. And if you look at our schools, in fact, most schools haven't really quite caught up yet in understanding that because of the attention span today is very low, you have to skillfully, disseminate information in small chunks that is easily digestible. So smaller chunks, but increase the frequency pretty much. If you give long lectures, they lose concentration. Most of them lose concentration, and that's just the world that we live in today. So being able to understand that and find a good balance to how information is disseminated will go a long way in being able to educate them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think I understand your perspective very well. Of course, that's the essence of things like micro-learning, simply because people's learning attention span is very, very short now. And if we are going to apply it to what we do here, we should reduce the length of our presentations and discussions, maybe presentations and then have more time to discuss. And then maybe on the whole, if we say it's 45 minutes, we finish in 45 minutes. If you say it's 30 minutes, we finish in 30 minutes. Would that summarize, would that help us achieve what you have in mind, sir?
Yeah, to some extent, I think it will. I also think that I believe that the conversation part of it can be slightly, can take more precedence, right? Like can have a longer duration period.
Okay. Shorter presentation, longer discussions.
Longer conversations around that presentation with the goal of getting inputs, right? Because it's the input that we get back that will help us understand, what generation is thinking about generally. Do you understand?
Okay.
And once we understand what they're thinking about, then we can also advise or give back information or give back advice. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. Bite-sized learning and then longer discussions. All right. And okay, Sister Jumoke. Oh, you have the microphone already, always. So please go ahead.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I just wanted to also make a comment around engaging the younger folks. So one of the things I had also observed, because my team is actually young people today, and what I've realized is the opportunity to take responsibility is one thing that makes them thrive and open up. So I don't know, I believe many of us either have our businesses or we're senior people that, that we have the opportunity to make hiring decisions. I think that that's also an area that we could look at. Usually, when they come in, it's with a lot of distrust, and I experienced it. If your sincerity is not showing, they're not going to open up. But if we can be a bit more open, they will test you. And I know we've had that experience with our children and wards. They will test you by being deliberately disruptive. If you're not faced by those things, if you are open to address those things and confront them, you would also begin to see them. You would then also, so my perception has been that the older folks are talking down at the younger ones, and I was also guilty. I still am, because we all fall short of some of these things from time to time. But I see that the younger, and when I described it to them today, I was shocked that they actually agreed. I see that they have a lot of bottled fears, but they have a smoke screen because they don't, so excuse me, they don't want you to see that fear. So they're dying on the inside. They are struggling to keep up the front, and yet they're not opening up to us. So I do agree with Brother Douglas and everyone that has spoken that we have to be creative to let them step out. But I think one of the ways that we can also impact, especially in Nigeria, is to also create platforms for them to be able to express themselves. They are not like us. They're not subservient. I'm sorry, I don't mean to abuse us. They are also not, because sometimes we think it's submission, but sometimes our submission sort of ventures into subservience, and before we know it, we've lost identity. That's one of the things that I see that they're struggling against. They don't want to be us. They want to be themselves and the best of themselves. So I believe that that's one other area that we can use to drive some of these leadership that we're trying to engender. Thank you.
Can I just add that I have someone I know who is working with them now. They're called the Smartian Gen Z or whatever, and he's working tremendously. He's doing a lot of work with this next generation. He has gathered them together, and they're doing phenomenal work with them. It might be ideal for me to talk to him. Maybe he can come and speak to us one, and then he can bring some of them, because he has shared so many of the videos of what they're doing with us. So he has that mindset of working with them. Because like you said, Jumoke, I'm an educator, so I see them from an education point of view. An HR is going to see them from how are they going to work in the workplace. And most people are complaining that they are not integrating well in the workplace, because we are looking at them working the way we work. But they are looking at remote working. They are looking at shorter hours. They're looking at, I will give you value. I don't need to work 10 hours. If I work 2 hours and I give you value, that's good. So we are at different spectrums now. So we need to know, what are we trying to address? Is it them? Because somebody mentioned social media and negative influences. There are so many things that we need to look at. So we have to decide which one are we picking that we want to talk to. But I can talk to him, because they have voiced their opinions a lot in the videos of where they're at and what they want the next generation to do for them. So maybe we can bring him and some of them together to speak to us in one of the forums. He can come with 2 or 3 of them on Zoom, and they can speak to us. And he, as the person that coordinated them, can also speak, because he's been working to them for quite a few years. So if that's okay, I can sort of arrange it.
I will leave comments on that to Mr. Wright, even though I believe that nobody has an objection to that. And in his closing remarks, he will address that. No, I want to believe that we are all going to be happy to have them address us and talk to us. Chukuma, please go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I think I hear a lot of fear about the next, about the future generations that I think are a lot unfounded. I see, when I work with quite a number of them, and when I see them and I talk to them, I see myself, or I see them the way I was when I was their age. A lot of fear about the future, not knowing what to do. But I also realized that working with quite a couple of them who I saw in their 20s, who are now in their 30s, that responsibilities tend to shape them in the workplace and in their lives. And with guidance, they tend to do very well. And I want to, I share the same opinion with someone who has spoken earlier. Quite a number of them are actually doing well. And because of the larger population we have in the country, and then the influence of social media, we seem to see quite the few negative eggs, tend to have a large voice, but the silent majority are actually doing well in their professional lives, in their personal lives, and the future is good. So what I see is a bigger economy, a bigger future for the country, and them creating more companies. Look at the companies that have done $1 billion in the last 5 years are all made by below 30-year-olds. And so we see more of that coming up as the years go by, and them taking responsibilities and taking over the economy and taking over things as the older generations. It's a normal cycle. I don't have that fear. I think the future is bright. Of course, the government issue aside, but for the younger people, the way they are and how they view things, and social media will eventually become a tool as it is, just like Masset is and like calculator is. The computer and the AI will all become a tool in the hand of humans to make life better, just like other technologies that came before them. So I really don't have that fear. Yes, it's good to integrate them, but I want advice that we don't approach it from a point of fear or a point of negativity, like someone has said earlier, but that we approach it with a mindset of you are doing well, you are doing great, keep doing what you're doing well. And if you see anybody who is falling out of line, yeah, you could actually do things a bit better. But for a majority of them, they just want to succeed and do well in life and nothing more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Looks like we have just 5 minutes to the top of the hour, and I'll hand over to Mr. Wright, but I want to crave the indulgence of the house. Is there anybody whose birthday is happening this month? Anybody? So we can just pray for such a person, and then maybe subsequently also we can spare time for that at least once every month. Thank you very much. Mr. Wright, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Funshaw. Thank you, Jumoke, for a very insightful presentation. And thank you for the various contributions. Quite a number of points have been raised. And what I want to assure Bolaji of is that any initiative that you have to let us have that legacy in terms of getting the young people on board and listening to them, please go ahead. I'm sure my colleagues also would agree to that. So ideas are welcome. And please, not just me. There are quite a number of people in the group that you can contact, and we'll discuss it. I know for certain, Jumoke, I know she's been doing a lot of work, like Funshaw indicated in the background, and you can contact Munisola, Somi, Shola Yegbade, Funshaw Toki, Tusi, Ayeni. There are people that we constantly discuss on so many topics, and please feel free to come up. Now, still, maybe just say with Bolaji's comments for now. Bolaji, well done. I'm sure you've done a lot of work with the young people, and your trip to Babcock. I'll listen to you. What you can do is to amend the topic. You can amend the topic, get rich quick, yes, may not be what we want to speak about, but just discuss with Pastor Adesoya, who is the chaplain of Babcock University. He also deals with a lot of young people. You can explain to him, and you can amend the topic. So we have a number of young people on this platform. Maybe not now, but transform minds. I don't want to embarrass one of them that I invited and is here. Israel, you're welcome. Israel.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. I'm
in a noisy environment. That's why I decided to reserve my comment. But I was following through every conversation. Maybe
okay.
I'm in the environment, I can make my contributions. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, Israel. I would add you to the forum anyway. And yeah, thank you. So we have one person here. We also have a Victor who is in his 20s. He's an excellent young man. He's been, in fact, I can say it here. All the flyers you see on a weekly basis, Victor is the one that does it, that does them, that designs them rather. And I'm sure we are applauding him because he's been consistent and it's made life a lot easier for Jumoke. So the younger generation, they have a lot to offer. I don't want to repeat what you've said. Just give them a chance and let's trust them. So what I'll just say is that we have to round up now because time is really far gone. And your fair Ogunje Mite, I don't know, it's not here now. I don't know whether it's also visiting or being on this platform for the first time or maybe second time. We just said a short prayer. Israel Adeniran, we also pray for him. So we need to round up now. And what you can see is that certainly the discussion has been geared towards the next generation and the legacy that we all have. So, and we'll probably still have something next week to build on this. It just means that God is telling us something. We need to do more to bring up the young generation. So please be bold enough, invite them to join us, and we'll be doing a great thing for the vision of Transform Minds. Chukuma has encouraged us not to be afraid of, not to entertain any fear. Thank you, Chukuma. We've listened, and certainly we'll do it. Just some administrative matters. Tosin Ayeni has done a great job in designing a form for updating the database for Transform Minds, because we want to know what people do, their background. Give the other information that you feel comfortable with, because in doing that, we can also know how we can interact with each other, what we can call you to do. Of course, we get the permission, just to know each other for the networking that we hope to do. So Tosin will be sending out a form regarding database. Please, let's fill the form, but it's not mandatory, but it will be useful. You can fill this form. And of course, those who are joining us for the first time, if I can also get more information on you and your phone numbers, so we can add you to the WhatsApp group. Thank you very much. And tomorrow we have a prayer session at 5. If you can join, that would be great. Next week, there's another interesting topic. I will come on Tuesday at 5 o'clock. God bless you all. Thank you for coming. We just have a short prayer now. Father, we give you thanks, Lord, for the success of this session. We thank you, Lord, for your daughter, Adi Jumoke, that you've used to make this insightful presentation. We pray, Lord, that not just be listeners, we'll also implement what we've learned. And most importantly, do everything to glorify your name. May we continue to excel in our various areas of our responsibility, in our relationship with the younger generation. Thank you, Father, because all your children who are present on this platform would excel in life. Meet them at the point of their needs, and your name be glorified. Take all the glory and adoration, Father, for answer prayers, and for taking Transform Minds to a level we never imagined, and blessing everyone individually and as a group, because you have prayed in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you very much.